It is August the 13th. Time marches on. What do you have to say about that?
I think this is our illusion. Hello, by the way. I wonder what time is it? Where are you from?
Time is now.
Right, right. That's deep. That's you've been very cagey. I like that.
It's also now. A little bit later, it'll be now. But, on our cover shot, I really like those mashed potatoes. And also, I love chicken Kiev. I had it the very first time I was living in Ankara, Turkey. There was no high school in this small town that we were stationed in Turkey. So I went away to school. I guess I was 14 or 15, something like that, living on my own, away from my family. And my father came to visit, and he took me to the officers' club. It was very swanky in Ankara, a big, like an embassy, kind of an embassy kind of building. And, white tablecloths and all that. And the waiter came and he took, wanted to know what we wanted. And my father was very good about ordering and making a big deal out of everything. So he ordered it. And I go, well, what are we getting? He goes, this is the most amazing thing. You're going to love it. Whenever you go out to eat, when when you grow up, this is what you should order, because this is what should be eaten, chicken Kiev. And I always will remember that encounter.
That's very interesting. First of all, I didn't know that's internationally known, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just you who knows that. But Kiev cutlet is one of my favorites. Although I remember that incident I had like a few years ago. I was supposed to be at some sort of an important meeting, and we had lunch before that. And that Kiev cutlet, it's filled with oil, not olive oil or vegetable oil. It's I don't know. It's made with I don't know. They probably put some kind of oil in it. Just regular oil, not butter. I don't have to say oil. We call it oil both, but you know it's just butter. And it was really hot. And when I tried to just cut in two all this butter, just because there wasn't pressure inside of it, just it just blew
Oh
all
my
over
God.
me, and all my suit, all my three-piece suit, and the tie. I was in this cutlet Kiev, like, yeah, that was not good. Now it seems funny, but at the moment I was kind of upset, and yeah, that's that. But I'm surprised that you know it. It's delicious, and if you have it with the garlic bread or I don't know something, it's really really tasty.
Well, there's a lot of foods that are known around the world, like beef bourguignon or creme brulee, or just you know, well, chicken Kiev is known at very fancy, kind of high end restaurants, and it is a chicken breast that has been pounded with I know how to make it with a wooden mallet. You pound it out with a wooden mallet, and then you roll it in cold butter and coat it with egg and breadcrumbs. And then on the inside of it, I think it has, was it spinach? What was on the inside of it? I can't remember. A little bit of maybe a little tiny bit of some kind of herbs on the inside. Then you roll it and then you kind of lightly fry it. And then you put it on a plate, maybe with some petit pois, like little green peas or mashed potatoes. So when you cut into it, and it also has garlic in it. So when you cut into it, the the most famous moment is when all the butter and the herbs and the garlic run out of the cutlet. But I suppose if yours was very very fresh off the grill, it kind of, maybe they should have let it rest a little bit. But yeah, I really like it.
Yeah. Also, it's funny you mentioned the officer club because in the Soviet army we had officers club too, and I think that army officer life is very much the same all over the world. I don't know what's army officer life like in the U.S. Army, but I think it's very much the same, not much different. I mean,
Well, I grew up in a Air Force, so there's Navy, Air Force, Army. So I mean, I'm sure that there are smart men and women in all of those different service branches, but we were Air Force, and we were considered to be above, the Army because we were in. My dad was in military
yeah,
intelligence, so
yeah.
not only
That's.
was.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I have to tell this because I tell you that the intelligence corps very selective about their officers, and you have to perform very well, to be successful in applying.
Yes, and I just know that. Oh, as we were growing up, and my sisters and I were, becoming teenagers, we were not supposed to date or go out with NCOs, kids, non-commissioned officers. We were only supposed to socialize with the officers, children. And when we were on base housing, we were assigned housing. The biggest houses that had sometimes it came with a maid and a driver and all this sort of stuff were the officers' houses. And when we would go into the city, let's suppose some of the officers' families would go into the city of Istanbul or wherever we were, anywhere we were, Italy. We could go to we could go to the officers' clubs in Italy and Greece and Turkey, all over. Whenever we'd go to the officers' clubs, we'd walk in and we'd be like, oh, there they are. And my father and mother were very good looking, and they had this entourage of children. And so I grew up sort of feeling like I was really special, like I was like a little princess or something.
When I was a child, I thought, what exactly do officers do? I think he was my uncle. He was in the army, and he says, well, officers lead men, and they make decisions. And
Yes.
I thought, wow, that's what I want to be.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
unfortunately, you have to be born with it. You can't really learn it. I mean,
well,
I would have made a great NCO probably, but no, I couldn't, like, you know, give orders and provide instructions or specific guidance to execute. Not me.
you can't. How are
Well,
you doing with
sometimes
your
you
own?
can.
How are you doing with making decisions in just your own life? Do you feel like you're
Bad.
doing really?
I'm doing bad. Not good. What's your anxiety level? Tell me anxiety check. What's your level on a scale 1 to 10?
From 1 to 10, I don't know. I guess I'm about a 3. It's very
Because
fun
you
thinking
sound
about.
relaxed, like you're -4.
Really, I'm actually really. I feel really, really good because
Your
I have.
your anxiety seems to be non-existent or in the negative.
Yes, yes, and I guess I have a lot of, you know, it's interesting how memory works. You know, we're we remember the best and we remember the worst times, but life isn't just the best and the worst. It's mainly just kind of mediocre times. But yeah, I like talking about growing up and going all over the world, and it really formed who I am as a person. And going to different schools, and the teachers who would teach in these schools were people who loved travel. So, like, my history teacher was this amazing German fellow who had us reading Herodotus and Thucydides and the Greek myths. And if I was in American high school in Texas, we would have never done that. We would have a very parochial curriculum. But since we were in the military schools, these schools all around the world attracted people who like to travel and who like to be in different settings. So it was a very, very rarefied education that I understand that I got as I look back on it. I mean, I just remember as a kid growing up, it's like, oh, we're moving again? Okay. Oh, we're leaving all my friends again? Okay. This is my new school? Okay, where's it? Which bedroom is my bedroom? Like, I just remember kind of like trying to find my place. which produced a bit of anxiety.
I can feel for you. I told you before that I've changed quite lots schools my life too, and yeah, I remember every principal in every school. Do you remember? I mean, they change them now and then, but do you remember principals that you had at your school?
I remember my geometry teacher. He was so good looking.
No, that was me. That was me who remembers. That's me who remembers my geometry teacher. Geography, by the way, not geometry. I think you've
No,
taken
well,
my
I mean,
over my idea and somehow extrapolated juxtaposition. It's called, I guess.
no, I just remember, I'm very good. I like algebra and the one where you do the proofs, like, still logical reasoning and also geometry because it's different shapes. I remember the teachers up on the board writing some stuff, and he had this like shirt that had like little red and pink stripes on it. I thought that was the most amazing shirt in the world. And, he had cologne on. And, when you're a 15-year-old girl, stuff like that really impresses you. So he would come from desk to desk. You raise your hand, he would come to your desk and help you. And I would demurely raise my hand. So he would hover over me and explain to me something about isosceles triangles. But and then I also had this really, really thin, tall woman. She might have been German too, Mrs. Foster. Yeah, Mrs. Foster it wasn't like Chanel suits, but it was something the equivalent of the styling of a Chanel suit, like a boxy top and a slim skirt and high heels. And she taught us, what did she teach? Oh, political science. So, yeah, well, what what about your geography teacher?
Yeah, I
What
told
was
you
she
that
like?
was Freudian sort of affection, I think, because you said I was 15 or 16, well, basically a grown man already, and she was 28 or something like that. And I loved her. I think she loved me too, but Anyway, what's political science?
Government. The political science is the theory of government, like democracy, communism, socialism, the Greek city states, the Roman Empire. So, in the high school I was in, it was in Ankara, Turk. No, I don't know. Yeah, was it in Ankara? Yeah, it was in Ankara. I just remember, we were reading Karl Marx, and we were reading different things written by, Thucydides and Herodotus, and all these theories of political. And we were just teenagers. So if I was in an American high school in Texas, we just take Texas history and American government. We just learn about the president and the three branches of government. And really, teenagers are capable of learning much, much more than just the three branches of government, who are the presidents. And then, place that education in a foreign country, Turkey or Germany or France or Italy or wherever we were. That was great. Now, why were you going to different schools?
Well, because my father was in sort of a military too, and he had to switch places every 3 years, I think, and that's why. Because as a family, we had to go alone. Yeah, very much like yours. And I told you before that when I grown up, I said to myself, my kids will never change school until I finish it, and that's what I did. They've never changed it, and they finished it. The school they entered, because mine, I don't know, maybe I was, maybe it was just me, but I don't know. I didn't like switching schools because you have to establish yourself a new one. But then again, you need that pressure to
No, but it's very
stay strong.
disturbing because I have a very, very good friend who has been my friend for, ever since, well, ever since I was, a teenager. And she grew up in a military family too. Her dad was also military. And um, we've maintained a letter writing correspondence, oh gosh, 30 or 40 years. And, we've talked about why we are the way we are, why we're very disturbed, and why we have different problems. And we attribute to the fact of being uprooted all the time and having to overcompensate. And so many, a lot of really awful things happened as we travel from place to place to place to place to place. You can't really put down any roots. And it's very hard as you become an adult to, find I don't know, when you start dating or you figure out who you might want to marry, you always pick the wrong people. But she and I have had some discussions about why why our life turned out the way it has. And we have attributed it to the fact that we grew up in military families all over the world. So there's that too.
You said adult, and I thought, well, define adult, because what does it mean being an adult? And
Well, I mean,
how to become an adult? No, let
you're
me
not
finish,
a,
because I thought that sometimes maybe I'm not enough of an adult, because how do I become more adult? Because I think maybe all of these troubles in relationship and stuff, maybe it's because I'm not grown enough. I've not grown enough to the
I was going to say that
level
you're not,
grown. Huh?
I was going to say you're not an adult, you're a man child.
Yeah, that's exactly. But how do I become adult? How to become an adult if I want to? How do you learn how to become an adult? I don't know, because
It's
if you
very,
don't define,
it's, it's very difficult because also, for example, I grew up pretty much on my own all the time. So I have a very strong animus, is like Carl Jung talks about our male and female personality traits. I mean, we all have strengths and weaknesses, but I'm a very, very, very strong person, kind of like a man. But I can't become I can't become any other way because I've been this way for so long. And also, I grew up mainly under the intellectual supervision of men. So, university professors and church leaders, like, Father Don, a very, very important person in Dallas, Texas. He is exactly the type of person that has always mentored me, very, very, very smart, very, very clever, very worldly. So back to you. If you grew up mainly with women, I don't know if you have sisters or like the specifics about your life, but if you grew up in a female dominated household, and it's normal as a young boy to have a little crushes on like women teachers, but if you were always rewarded for being like, sweet and charming and smiling and kind of a puppy, well, that's what you've been rewarded for, and that's why you're a man child. That's just my idea. I'm sorry.
no,
I love
I
I love puppies.
I see what you did here. I dig you. But you're from the U.S. I don't know whether this person is considered to be a legal adult at the U.S. like at age 20, I think, because
18. 18.
and then 18. Okay, and when I was like at school, I think they said that the average person's brain doesn't finish physically maturing until 26 or 27. I don't know, somewhere way above 18. And I think if you are considered legal adult at 18, but physically you're not until after 25, how is that fair?
Well, it's not fair. And also, in Texas, there's a certain age where you can get your driver's license, and there's a certain age where you can go to prison, and there's a certain age where you can get married. There are these different ages, but I don't know. I mean, different psychologists have said that most of our personality is set down by about age 5. Think 5, 6. Maria Montessori, who was an Italian educator and just a brilliant person in the world of childhood development. Most of the patterns of learning and the ways of interacting, it's all set down when you're like, 4 or 5. And then also there's these different other peaks that men and women have, like supposedly a man's sexual peak and a woman's sexual peak. They're at different ages. It's different ages. And then if you're traveling all around the world, if you're, like all these factors play into who you are. And I don't say that it's hopeless, but like I do go to some, I often go to some therapy or counseling. I go to, I've talked to some different priests about things going on in my life, and I've talked to different teachers or counselors or mentors. And, I'm always talking about problems or like something I'm dealing with. And, as I look back onto some old journals of different things I was dealing with 10, 27 or 5, 23 years ago, and it's always the same types of problems, just new versions of the same problems.
It's interesting you mentioned age 5, because I have a few pictures from a kindergarten when I was a little baby. Not a little baby, but a little kid.
Little boy. Yeah.
You can look, little boy. You can look at these kids, age 5 to 7, I think, and by the look in the eyes and by their appearance, what is what, who is what. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is there is not set age in which everyone magically becomes a responsible adult. Because some people becomes adult at 18, and some not at 60, and every person is different.
Yes. Are you still there? Oh, I thought it cut off. No, looking at these childhood pictures, especially a picture at a school picture, as I go back and I've looked at some pictures, it's interesting to see, like sometimes the teachers will line you up and sometimes they just say, okay, we're going to do our picture. Just get on these risers. You stand on these different little steps. And it's interesting to see where people place themselves. Like, are they in the center? Are they off to the left? Are they, So as I look at pictures, pictures of myself growing up, I'm astonished to see how serious I look, even at a very young age. Like, I have one picture of myself about 13 or maybe not even 14 yet, and I was very slim. I had a dark hair. I had a camera. I had like a fitted dark blue linen dress on, and I've had a camera with me like most of my life, and I have such a serious look on my face. And then I also have other pictures of myself as a child. My father had a dark room where he had a photography as his hobby, and he'd take pictures of the family and stuff. And I would just look at some of those pictures. I look so serious. Like, I think a child should be happy and smiling. Like, I'm just always so serious. What do you look like in your pictures?
Frustrated.
And what do you think some of the reasons might be? Like, why are they taking this picture?
No,
I don't want to be here.
No, not frustrated. I don't know. Some people look good in pictures, and some are not. And until age 15, I think I'd look extremely good. But then something changed, and I stopped becoming photogenic. I think that's the word. But I said frustrated because there was a video. I can't turn it off right now. Alan Swartz lecture, and you asked me how do I look, and he said frustrated, and I just seconded. I thought that'd be funny. Yeah.
Well,
how do you get
Go ahead.
No, I thought, how do you get the personality to come out in your photos?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's just there, and the photograph just captures a moment in time. But if over and over and over and over and over again, these moments, and all of them, I'm looking so serious, and I'm looking kind of annoyed. I have seen one picture of you as a little boy in an elementary school. I think you're wearing maybe it's a black and white picture. You have like a little white collar, a little black uniform or something on. And as I recall in that picture, you're not looking directly at the camera, but you're kind of looking. You look a little bit shy and a little bit kind of like, is everything okay? Kind of like questioning. I don't know that. I just remember when I saw that picture a couple of years ago. You had sent me. We had exchanged one picture from childhood. I just remember you look smart, you look clever,
I
and you
know
just kind of.
you confused me with with somebody else, I guess, because I told you I'm second and to the right, and that was to my right, but you took it as your right, and you
No,
chose on
it
the
is
right.
not. It is not. That is who you are. You cannot change yourself.
No, I
Okay,
know
what?
Canada distorts reality in subtle ways, okay, but to me, it's often like most people look better in person because the impression of the attractiveness isn't just visual. You can hear the sound and smell and motion, see the motion, appearance adding up in your mind for some total.
Yes,
So
this friend of mine, Alex, had this several years ago. Had this like crush on this one woman that worked in the same place where he worked, in this botanical garden, and she worked in the office, and I think he worked just kind of out on the grounds or something like that. And somehow, they were close to each other in age. Maybe she might have been a year or two older, but you know, he would just see her from a distance, and he would just have had this biggest crush on this woman. And then he just could imagine, like, gosh, what would it be like to just take her on a date? Like, what would it be like just to sit across from her at dinner? Like, wouldn't it be amazing if I could just go eat ice cream with her? Because you had all these ideas of what it would be like to be with that person. And then I remember he told me that he actually somehow secured her phone number, and they actually went out on a date. And I go, well, how did it go? He said, well, she didn't have any makeup on, and she was late, and she had really thin lips. I said, and was that a deal breaker? He goes, yes. She wasn't anything like I thought she would be. So this was somebody he had seen, like, you see people at work, in the distance or at a coffee shop or in the elevator, and you think, like, that's an amazing woman. Or you think, like, well, that person's, looks so interesting. But if you actually spend time with the person, sit across from them at coffee or, for a date or something like that, quite often they're different than what you thought. And a lot of people use these dating apps, Tumblr, Tinder, Grinder, all these apps to find someone to date. And then the pictures people post are very different from that's what they would like for people to see them as. And this one friend of mine, she's an interior designer, very accomplished woman, just a really great person. She was telling me that I should go, like, I'm so interesting, talking about me. I should use this one dating app. I go, no, yeah, no, thank you. It was called Hinge, Hinge. And you have to fill out this profile. Are you interested in something serious? Are you interested in something lightweight? What are some of your things that you like? Anyhow, she goes on like hundreds of dates, but she's not even interested in anybody. She just like guys to buy her dinner. So so imagine that you were looking at her picture on a dating app thinking, like, well, she looks very nice. I like her smile. I think I would like to get to know her. And she shows up for dinner at this very expensive restaurant and orders the most expensive stuff. And then afterwards, you try to call her back and she's deleted you. Like, the modern world.
What if she orders a Kiev cutlet?
Oh, hell yeah. She would order,
Wouldn't that
she
be
would order that.
synchronicity?
She would, no, she would, or well, I had this other friend, yeah, she likes the most expensive wines. Like, I'm not a big wine person, but this other person, her name is, it sounds like Diva, Diva, but it's actually it's Deva, Diva. she's even married, and she goes out on all these dates with guys that buy her all this expensive stuff, or she lets them buy her things like watches and jewelry and
Is the
kids.
expensive wine worth it? Because I don't drink that much wine. When I do it, I usually drink. I think it's either cheap can be considered cheap or some in the middle, and average. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I don't know.
I
I'm
don't
just
know
not a wine person.
what the worst expensive wine can
Well,
cost.
the wine people. This is just my my experience with wine people. They're like fascinated with their own ability to know so much about wine. So if I go to dinner with someone, I don't want to be spending the whole time with this person telling me about how much he knows about wine. Because really, I don't care. I don't care.
But you don't know
Yes.
much about wine. Don't you have to work inside some kind of wine store? Because otherwise, how would you know?
Well, you just grow up in a family that drinks expensive wine. If you're from a wealthy family, then your family knows what a Pinot Grigio is, and a family
So
knows
expensive? You mean
where
one
champagne.
thousand a bottle, or how much would that cost? Could you define expensive for me, just to
For
get
me,
an understanding?
I don't
Not for you
know.
necessarily. Not okay for you. What would be expensive for you?
No, no. See, I am just a little bit upper middle class person, like I'm a college professor. So I don't come from wealth. I don't come from wealth. You know, people in my family work.
Okay, two
So
hundred
people,
dollars in the store. Would that be expensive? I mean, I'm trying to understand the range here
well, I
to
mean, if you go,
differentiate.
okay, so this one couple that I know, they're 30 years old. They're a wonderful couple here in East Dallas. They just got engaged. Her engagement ring was an emerald surrounded by diamonds. So if you're engaged and you've given a girl an emerald surrounded by diamonds and you're going out for her birthday, you're going to spend $500 just on dinner for sure. So I'm saying the type of people that do high end dining and high end cars and high end vacations are a little bit out of my ballpark. I mean, I've been to lots of places and I've seen a lot of things, but like I don't even know how much I don't even know how much a Cartier watch costs. I don't even well, I mean, actually I do, but I'm saying I don't even know how much this beautiful square cut emerald surrounded by diamonds. I don't even know how much it costs. But like traditionally, an engagement ring would be little diamonds, but he gave her an engagement ring that's a huge emerald surrounded by diamonds, little tiny diamonds. It's fabulous. I know you want to talk about wine. I want to talk about emeralds. I don't know, like the super expensive stores,
No, no,
people that
I can talk about engagement rings too. Because well, when I was growing up, we didn't have such a ritual to give girl an engagement ring prior to marriage. I don't know. We just had a wedding ring right away. But when I watched the movie at the time in the US, it's maybe it's not in the US. Maybe the whole Western culture embraced that practice. I mean, the engagement rings, wearing rings during engagement. Could you
well,
tell me just a little bit more about that? Because I'm trying to
well,
play with the idea of
the
both wearing it.
idea. Well, it's a promise and it's an announcement to the world that you intend to marry this girl. So, since I am the daughter of a spy, a military intelligence, I'm very clever and tricky about the things that I do. Things don't always go well with this tricky, clever stuff. But I remember I was dating this one fellow, and we were in New Orleans, and there's St. Louis Cathedral. There's a square there. It's right on the Mississippi River. There's Cafe Du Monde. We're eating beignets like we're going to a wax museum. It's like this was great. It's not France, but New Orleans can be fun. And I decided that I was going to make this guy get me an engagement ring. So we go, and I also like antiques and, you know, old books and stuff like that. So we go into this, store, and I just start looking at rings. And so it's like an antique store. So everything in there is not at normal prices. So I just remember I saw this little gold ring with three little tiny, I don't even know, I don't think they were diamonds or little tiny specks or something. And I just tried it on and I asked the guy, the store owner, how much it was, and I just paid for it. And then I just walked out of the store. I put my hand up, my left hand up. I go, look, we're engaged. How do you think of so traditionally the man buys the ring and then he takes the woman to dinner, then he kneels on one knee and he opens up a little box and he shows the woman the box, will you marry me? And then she goes, oh yes, and then they take pictures. Or sometimes it's a surprise. It's supposed to be a surprise where the man presents his intention to marry this girl, and sometimes it's around friends and family. But what I did is I sort of tricked this guy into like, oh, look, we're engaged. And you know what his response was?
More.
Okay.
No, I'm thinking from what you have just said, I'm thinking, why do us, and by us, I mean men, why do men not get engagement rings?
Because, traditionally a woman leaves her home to form a new home with her husband. And generally, families like to know, I wonder if this guy has a job or could even take care of the daughter, the girl. So, in some places it's called a dowry. You know, you have to provide all this stuff to show that you're able to take care of this girl. So in I think in Western cultures, the idea is that a woman, and it's even in the Bible and stuff like that, you leave your home of origin and you're going to form a new life. So you need a place to live. You need a car. So, that means you need to have some money, and like it would be helpful if you had a job. So I just remember, when I got engaged, my mother said, well, what does he do? I go, he's going to be a dentist. So doctors and dentists, she hadn't even met the guy yet. Anyhow, that whole marriage collapsed 7 years later. But I'm saying families like to know that their daughters will be taken care of, because generally men have been considered the breadwinner. But, in modern times, men and women are working. But I mean, I've given guys.
I get that. I'm just thinking that maybe I understand that there is a culture, a tradition, but in different countries, I think there might be different, because what if we just exchange the same ring at the engagement, and then when we get married, you get the second one, so you have two and I have one? Or what if women don't give a man a watch, because man gives you a ring, you can give him like a Rolex, or I don't know, some kind of expensive watch. I mean,
well, I don't know. I mean, some people do that. Like I have given rings to different guys. Like I love turquoise and coral, onyx, lapis. I like those stones set in silver. So I remember I saw this really, really great ring. It was a silver ring, and it had on the sides of it like a steer, like a longhorn steer, and then an agate. And my friend David Anton, we both like University of Texas. We like being Texans. And I just remember I bought that ring, and I bought some other rings, and I gave that ring to David. I go, it was his birthday or something like that. He really, really liked it. I mean, we weren't romantically involved, but he's just a really, really great friend. And I don't know. Some people do give, rings and bracelets and watches and things. I know that when my daughter got engaged, what was it? Oh no, when they graduated from law school, I bought him a briefcase and cufflinks, like really beautiful silver cufflinks with their monogram. So I don't know. I mean, different people do different things. But a
You
lot of women
said,
who are attractive and marketable, they have several guys looking at her. So you got to compete. It's just the way it is in this world. Like if you're an attractive woman and you've got potential to be a great wife or whatever, you are not the only guy looking at her. So you better man up and buy a good ring or take her to a good place to eat because there's five other guys that also would like to have this woman as a bride or a date or whatever.
yeah, I understand that. Thank you.
I mean,
You
it's
said
not
Texan,
fair.
Texas.
It's
I
not
thought,
fair.
what's that like being Texan? Because you mentioned before that, no, I'm not American, I'm Texan. I thought, I cannot phrase that clearly, but obviously it's a big country, the United States. And do you feel culturally closer to Texas than as opposed to a country as a whole? And
Well,
that's always stunning
because I've lived more years outside of the United States than I have lived inside. So I have lived more years outside of the United States. So when I'm traveling at age 15 or 12 or 7 or 30 or whatever or 40, people ask me where I'm from. I say I'm from Texas. I just never say I'm an American because being an American abroad to me means you're like clumsy, aggressive, non-sophisticated. I have always felt an affinity to being a Texan. My family is from Texas. My roots are in Texas. My daughters were born in Texas. Texas is about like land, oil, cattle, money, history.
It's funny you said you lived most of your life you lived outside the US, and I was gonna say I've been living outside the US since 1972. Because I've never been I mean, I've been a couple of times, but still,
That's great.
just
But I mean, there's different parts to your country too, and I'm sure you feel closer to some parts than others. Like different places you visited or different. There's different cities. There's different places.
absolutely
Like
no, absolutely. Yeah, there's Siberia and Caucasus and Far East and the Soviet Union had the Middle East countries. I don't know if they can be considered Middle East, but near Afghanistan.
yeah, like
Countries that border
Kazakhstan,
Afghanistan. Yeah.
Tajikistan, all that stan stuff.
Yeah, because we border China and Afghanistan and Pakistan. No, we don't have Pakistani border. No, I don't. We don't think. I don't think we have. But still, it's a huge country, very much like the US. I think.
Well,
Yeah, it's
and also people who live in the city tend to think that they're more sophisticated and that they're better than people that live in the country. But most of the families, the people came from the country to get to the city. Like, in Turkey, in the eastern part is an area called Gaziantep, and it's kind of on the Silk Route, kind of on its way to Aleppo and Syria. Uh, my ex-husband, he was actually born in Gaziantep, but he and his father was from Gaziantep. So that is it doesn't even hardly resemble Turkey at all. Istanbul is like modern Turkey. But his father left Gaziantep and came to Ankara, and he was an engineer and kind of a mathematician. And then my ex-husband came to the United States on a mathematics scholarship. And but culturally, he is very much like Antep. Like we ask somebody where they're from in Turkey, if you're from Antalya or if you're
hello. You there? Hello.